A hero and a villain are like two sides of the same coin. The difference? One of them becomes a protector, a savior, someone people can look up to and have faith that no matter what bad comes to destroy their city, their hero is dependable and will always come to defend them. And the other one? When they come to heaven and start beating the shit out of dead people, they're crazy. The philosophy behind being a hero and a villain is one and the same. And most of the time when it comes to villains, most of them are just painted as evil, demonic, crazy, that they're just doing what they're doing because they're a hater and they were born this way. And I agree to an extent, that's mostly true for most bad guys. But at the same time, some of them were low-key making sense. I mean, I definitely don't agree with most of their methods, this shit's extreme. But the arguments and the ideas they will be bringing to the screen onto why they do what they do made more sense than the heroes trying to stop them. And that's what I'm here to speak about. Today, my beautiful people, I'll be going over villains, no matter how hated or loved, that were just making sense. And I really hate my first choice for this topic, but he was low-key spitting facts. Bringing the first guy to the stand, Chuck McGill from Better Call Saul. Real quick, I gotta get out of my system. I hate Chuck McGill. I despise him. I loathe him. I hate this guy more than the whole Breaking Bad fanbase flipping hates Skylar White. And most of you hate Skylar White for no reason. Her husband is evil, man. I hate Chuck, bro. I don't care. I want to see him burn, man. This guy is the biggest piece of shit brother in the show. The flipping blue crime twin is a better brother than Chuck, I swear down. Because this waste man gatekept his brother from being a lawyer at his own firm. His own brother was kept out, shut out the door, thrown out the window because he used to be a criminal. And Chuck's ego couldn't handle that his little brother hustled hard enough to be a lawyer, and because it wasn't at some fancy law school, he decided to shut him out. In that moment, when I first saw this scene at the end of the first season, best believe I want to throw this guy out the window. I thought Jimmy at the time was a victim to his circumstances, to his brother and Howard, stopping him from being a lawyer at Hamlin McGill. And I assumed at the time that's why he decided to continue to go about doing cons and scamming people, because he had no other option, he was cooked. Well, that, my friends, wasn't true at all. As hard as it is to say, Chuck was always right about Jimmy. Jimmy chose that life. He chose to stay a con artist. He chose to mess people over. He consistently used illegal methods to get his way all the time. Shit, we see it in the first season. Even before Chuck exposed himself, when he tried to run a scam on the Kettlemans using those two skaters, or even using a billboard with the exact same make and color scheme where it was just a copy of Hamlin McGill. He was being childish here. And as the seasons go on, you just see Jimmy do a bunch more dumb shit. And it's not like Chuck's gatekeeping kept this guy from being a better lawyer anyway. Jimmy had a whole job at Davis & Maine. This guy was making bread, fam. It was a crazy ass law firm too. Had his own assistant, his office, his own weird wooden table, and best of all, the guy had a Mercedes. He had everything. And it could have really just ended there. He could have kept going steady with Kim. She would have been fine at Hamlin McGill, and he really could have had a chill life. But it wasn't enough for him, so he gets himself fired. What? He took advantage of Cliff's kindness and generosity and the commercial without his consent, and because he didn't get the response he so wanted, he goes out of his way to piss Cliff off enough to fire him. I'm telling you right now, this guy didn't know when to stop. It's literally parallel to Walter and Breaking Bad in the sense that Walter's greed consumed him so much, he wouldn't even take a deal to stop making that crystal, even if the deal was as high as $5 million. He couldn't stop, and Jimmy's the exact same. He couldn't get enough of being a scammer. He had a hunger for this shit. He was so in the game, he scammed a poor old lady, Irene, made her out to be some dickhead in front of her friends so he could make some money. He did it to the elderly. He has no filter, he has no honor, he has no code. He's crazy, he's mad. But by far, the worst thing Jimmy has ever done to anyone in the whole of Better Call Saul was the absolute disgusting behavior and commitment he had to ruining Howard Hamlin's life. Even after knowing Chuck was behind him not being able to be a lawyer at Hamlin McGill, he still gunned for Howard. Even after Chuck died, he made him look like a drug addict, made him look like he was cheating on his wife, painted him to be a crazy lawyer, until that got Howard so pressed, he decided to go visit Jimmy and Kim one night. And then he gets packed. And for the remainder of how anybody remembers Howard Hamlin, the only thing they would remember is that he was a drug addict. And that was all because of Jimmy. Jimmy contributed to this man's death just because of something Howard did that he was probably forced to do by Chuck. He even wanted to hire Jimmy, but Jimmy would rather see him suffer than to take him up on his offer. Dickhead, man. I hate Chuck. I'm not disputing that. He's a piece of shit. He couldn't even tell his own brother that his mom's last words were her calling for Jimmy. He's a dickhead as well, man. But at the same time, he's seen Jimmy do stuff like this forever. Since they were kids, he even had the balls to rob his own father. Imagine seeing your brother rob your dad. You'd be pissed. And I agree that Chuck could have gone a completely different way in telling Jimmy about his issues. He moved like a waste man about it. But Jimmy, as much as I love Saul Goodman in both Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, is as much a dickhead for the rest of Better Call Saul as his brother was to him about gatekeeping him from the firm and trying to ruin his life. They're one in the same. Chuck was never wrong about him. Something that stuck with me when I watched the show was when Miss Kettleman didn't want to hire Jimmy as their lawyer because he was the kind of lawyer guilty people hire. And funny enough, she ended up being right, man. He became exactly to what the majority thought he would amount to be. And as much as Chuck contributed to this change, Jimmy had so much opportunities to go straight and never end up like this. Yet he decided every time to do it his way, the illegal way. With him, it ended up in prison for flipping 86 years. I mean, he's definitely chilling in prison though. He's like a celebrity there. But Jimmy ended up the way he was because of who he decided to be. And regardless of all the good he got, he still chose poorly, which Chuck was right about anyway. But I still don't like this guy, but him, man. The next villain I want to shift to talking about is someone I've never seen anyone ever bring to the spotlight. Nobody's ever mentioned the guy, it's insane. And the man I'm talking about is Ozymandias from Watchmen. And in short, the guy basically pulled the Ultron. Ozymandias was one of the heroes part of the group that made up the Watchmen, a vigilante team full of former law enforcement and government agents. And the craziest thing about the Watchmen is that if you've seen the movie and seen how some of these men box, they don't have powers. What do you mean? Look at the way they're sending people flying with their kicks. How you gonna tell me he's just a regular human? You're lying, man. You're tripping. Ozymandias was the main man and leader behind Watchmen, with him also being known as the smartest man on the planet. Eventually in the movie, President Nixon forces Watchmen to disband and bans all vigilantes from ever resuming their activities. The rest of the team followed this and decided to just stop being heroes, except Ozymandias, who eventually flipped this and built $1 billion industry. He's got that dollar man, and with his wealth and intelligence combined, this deviant pulls one of the craziest stunts I've ever seen. I kind of understand to an extent. In the movie, the year is 1985. The Cold War has dawned on the planet. The United States and the Soviet Union are about to bomb rush each other with nukes and finesse the entire planet. Only the Soviets were too shook to ever make a move on the States because of the one biggest weapon they ever had, Dr. Manhattan. And you see this man, he can do everything, bro. He can literally do anything. Except when it comes to wearing clothes. This guy was butt-ass naked the entire movie. I ain't want to see that shit. Dr. Manhattan eventually gets into a conference to discuss a bunch of bullshit until a reporter starts telling him that all his former colleagues have now gotten cancer, pointing to him as the cause for this. Even getting his former girlfriend to walk in and yak off her wig, which gets Dr. Manhattan so heated, he deleted the entire room of people. I told you he was overpowered, man. He eventually just says burnt earth and decides to go live his life on Mars. And now with Dr. Manhattan gone, the US are getting shook. They decide to forget everything and start planning to dash bombs at the Soviet Union, even getting ready to sacrifice their own people in the process. While the rest of the Watchmen, Rorschach, Night Owl, and Silk Spectre are investigating and doing some digging into what the comedian, a former member of the Watchmen, was looking into. Because, you know, he got packed to the start of the movie. Eventually, Night Owl and Rorschach break into Ozymandias' building and find out that he was behind everything, eventually confronting him in his base in Antarctica, and he just straight up admitted it. He killed the comedian at the beginning of the movie. He gave cancer to all of those people who ever interacted with Dr. Manhattan. He framed Rorschach for killing a former member of the Minutemen so he would go to prison, even paying an assassin to stage an attack against himself so it would look like he was just as much a victim as any other member. He even spent $2 billion on research so Dr. Manhattan couldn't use his busted up abilities to see into the future to even figure out that Ozymandias was the man behind it all. And before the Watchmen could even stop him on his master plan, it was too late. It was already in motion. Ozymandias got Dr. Manhattan to replicate his powers, to use it as a bomb, put them in 5 different locations on Earth, and annihilated 15 million people. And his reasoning, his goal, his drive, his motivation to do this was to achieve world peace. See, the world was already looking like it was going into a third world war. It was on the verge of nuclear annihilation, and no amount of peaceful gatherings or understandings would get any huge powers to back down. Ozymandias' primary objective was to save humanity from self-destruction by any means necessary, and by using the bombs he placed in various areas, wiping them out across the globe, the world ultimately saw a bigger threat than the opposing powers beside them, Dr. Manhattan. And by all the other countries seeing him as a bigger threat, it ultimately conditioned the world to fall into global peace. His plan worked. In his own words, he sacrificed millions to save billions. He basically disciplined the government, slapped them in the face, and got them all to shake hands. But the craziest thing is that after the Watchmen realized what he had done and the global massacre he committed, Some of them were low-key agreeing on his action. Dr. Manhattan literally got snaked out to be the world's biggest threat, and he agreed on Adrian's decision. What do you mean, bro? Rorschach was literally the only one to call them out on their bullshit and wanted to expose that it was Adrian the entire time. But because it could have threatened global peace, Dr. Manhattan just pulled up to him and did this. That's messed up, man. But the fact that Ozymandias' plan worked and resulted in world peace, it meant that he had a point on the state of the world. It was shit. If it wasn't for Ozymandias' plan, the world could have likely spiraled into Armageddon and eventually would have been turned into some nuclear wasteland. I'm not agreeing with the fact that he had to take out 15 million people to get it done, but I mean, he got it done, he won here. This shit would never happen in real life though, they would just blow each other up, it's mad. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the final villain of this discussion. A man on the verge of wrong and right. A man who suffered at the mercy of man for too long. One of the greatest villains ever written, Magneto. And Magneto is really the biggest focus here. If you're a mutant in the Marvel universe, you're just whole from birth. The racism these men suffer is insane, you can't comprehend it. I can relate to it in a way, because you know I'm black, but these guys truly suffer. The government just holds a giant bias to mutants for shit they don't do, just because they exist. It gets you thinking, why don't they hold the exact same treatment to some superheroes? Like, no shade, but the Hulk is 10 times more dangerous than any of the kids that come out of Charles' school. But apparently the government would rather go for them instead of Bruce. Make it make sense, the Hulk has killed hundreds of people, bro. He destroys cities, fam. They even created robots, Sentinels, which could adapt to a mutant's weakness to kill them, and they actually signed off on it and agreed to make them. How is it that after seeing all of this, that Professor X is somehow still a pacifist? It's so naive. Take a second to really deep it. Mutants are an oppressed race of people out of humanity's fear of what they could do to them. But that fear they have is in their imagination. I understand that people are shook of what they don't understand. And with mutants, it's different because they literally are born with superpowers. So if you're living comfortably in your normal neighborhood and you found out your neighbors could somehow create lasers that can split statues in half, or faster than how time is perceived, or even warp reality, yeah, I'd be a little scared too. But that doesn't call for a social injustice and a civil rights issue. If mutants were like how humans thought of them, they would have already destroyed the world because they can. It's clear to me and everyone that the normal people got more of an issue with them than the mutants have with humans. And with Magneto, a victim of survival, being a Holocaust survivor, witnessing the murders of many and the mistreatment of the majority, he already understood human nature, and that as long as people would fear them, they would always be seen as bad people. Not to mention with the countless times humans tried to kill these men, I'm not surprised that Magneto stays a mutant supremacist. They never disprove his ideals and the way he thinks about people. They reinforce it every time. From the first X-Men movie, when Jean Grey was talking to the government about them trying to pass a bill which exposes mutants' identities when they're already victims to mass violence and hate. And the senator didn't give a monkey and was still trying to throw them under the bus anyway. Dickhead. Or in X2, when Stryker was about to kill all mutants using Charles just because his son ended up becoming one. Or even the Weapon X program he used to do where he exploited mutants to use them as weapons. Evil. Or even the most greatest personal example to Magneto himself is that before he pulled his crazy ass shenanigans as an old man, is that in his past, he left that life behind. He had a quiet life working in Poland, normal 9 to 5, had a house in the middle of the woods, a loving wife and child. He put away the helmet and suit and just wanted to live out the rest of his life in peace. Until they killed his family. Yeah, they killed his family. So no wonder this guy's evil. They basically give him a reason every time to be a bad guy. You're forcing it out of him. What's wrong with you? Look, I'm not siding with Magneto's whole supremacy against humans and how he just wants to stage an uprising. But at the same time, between both his and Charles's motives, there's no one answer to this. Their world is cooked. On one hand, you have somebody who wants to establish coexistence and wants to bring peace between humans and mutants, which is the ideal outcome, but will never happen because the government are dickheads. Then you have the other hand, who wants to stage a revolution, coup d'etat, whatever the hell you want to call it, and practically take over the planet as the main species, basically wanting to wipe humans off the planet. They're both bad, but Magneto, with all his questionable choices, has never been proven wrong by society. When push comes to shove, he'll confidently do what he deems necessary to protect his people, which I mess with, even if that means he's got to take out humanity in the process. And for how long he's lived witnessing people's actions, prejudice, hate, and greed, it's no shit that he has a general bias against humanity. He's only been able to see the worst in people. I mean, if they kill my family, best believe no one's surviving. I'm crashing out. Magneto isn't a villain because he's a bad guy. He's a villain because he has to be one. He's been dashed into a fight or flight scenario his whole life. And his perspective, which leads him to do what he has to do, is the most valid reason discussed here today. It's just him wanting to survive. And if I personally had to choose between joining Professor X or Magneto, ba-da-da-da-da-da-da. So these were some villains I thought were making a good point. I know there's a billion of other people I could have covered, but hopefully we can save them for a part 2. If you disagree with me on anything I said in the video, or low-key agree with me, comment down below, man. I love you, man. I appreciate all of you, man. And I hope you have a blessed rest of your day. Goodbye.